Good afternoon, colleagues. Welcome to the press conference following the Gymnich, this informal meeting of the foreign ministers here in Limassol, Cyprus, with thanks to our dear hosts. We will start with a statement by the High Representative, followed by Minister Kombos, and then we will have a few questions. High Representative, the floor is yours.
Dear representative of the press, dear Konstantinos, thank you for hosting us in this sunny Limassol. We had very open and very good discussions, like it is usual for the Gymnich format. First, we discussed the situation in the Middle East, together with the Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal and India's Minister of External Affairs Jaishankar. Both countries play an important role through their extensive diplomatic engagement across the region, and it was good to hear their views. I mean, it was very eye-opening also for us and to see what more can we do together. On Iran, the Strait of Hormuz remains caught in a dangerous grey zone between war and peace. There is now a tenuous diplomatic push underway to extend the ceasefire and reopen the strait. But any first phase agreement between US and Iran must be followed by deeper talks about the nuclear stockpile, but other critical issues for regional security. The EU can contribute with technical expertise when it comes to nuclear talks, for example. The EU is helping to protect the freedom of navigation in the region, including through Operation Aspides. We have already reinforced the mission with more ships, but additional capabilities will be required if we want to do more. At the same time, the EU is stepping up our security and defense cooperation with the Gulf countries. Beyond Iran, we also discussed other issues in the Middle East and other crises. In Lebanon, the ceasefire appears to be more nominal by the day. Return to full-scale war is a real possibility. We also discussed Gaza and the West Bank, including possible restrictions on the trade linked to settlements, and sanctions to ministers was also raised. But as Gymnich format is a place where we don't do decisions, so we will revert to this issue back to when we are having the Foreign Affairs Council in Luxembourg. Then on Russia. The dynamics of the war are shifting in Ukraine's favor. Russia is on the back foot militarily, economically, but also diplomatically. But as the latest strikes on Kiev have shown, Russia still shows no genuine interest in peace, which was also the clear view of the ministers today. Moscow's direct threat to kill foreign diplomats in Kiev is a public announcement of a war crime. Today, we also discussed our own European core security interests regarding Russia. It is good that ministers had the chance to reflect, and we had really thorough discussions on what concessions Europe should ask from Moscow and what our red lines are. And one thing is very clear. Europe will never be a neutral mediator between Russia and Ukraine, because we are on Ukraine's side and we are defending our own core security interests. I put forward a discussion paper already in February, but just let me recall a few of the points that were there. Unconditional ceasefire is a prerequisite for any kind of peace negotiations. That was also underlined by ministers today. Russia must stop sabotage operations, cyber attacks, election interference, airspace violations across Europe. Limiting Ukraine's military while Russia rearms would directly threaten European security. If there are gaps for Ukraine's army, there must be also limitations for Russia's. There can be no legal recognition of the occupied Ukrainian territory. There must be also accountability, and that is very important. Russia must cooperate with the international investigations and should pay for destruction it has caused. Any peace agreement must fully accept Ukraine's sovereignty, independence, and right to choose its own alliances. And of course, there are broader security concerns when we look at the presence of Russian troops in countries such as Georgia and Moldova. It is clearly in Europe's interest that these forces are no longer stationed there. There are more issues, of course, it was a long paper, but let me leave it there. Also, ministers were proposing some new ideas that should be there, but the bottom line is this. Europe has valid demands to ensure that any peace is lasting, and the ministers asked me to take this work forward. Ministers also discussed how to increase the pressure on Russia globally. Too many countries continue to do business with Moscow while simultaneously enjoying privileged access to European markets and investments. So Europe must use its leverage more effectively when it comes to trade, investment, market access, partnerships. And this is why we are also preparing new sanctions to Russia, to really pressure them so that they would go from pretending to negotiate to actually come to the negotiation table. Overall, there was a strong unity today to defend European interests, to support Ukraine and put more pressure on Russia. So, dear Konstantinos, thank you again for organizing this wonderful meeting, and thank you for the hospitality that you have shown to all of us here. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Kaya, for putting this agenda together and for co-chairing this very interesting conversation, a discussion that was conducted in true Gymnich style, very open, very direct, very honest. We touched upon the issues that Kaya mentioned. The first session in the morning about the wider situation in the Middle East, and also looking forward as regards supply lanes, and how the lessons we can learn from the situation, how we can de-risk in terms of the flow of goods, energy, and so on and so forth. So we had the pleasure of having with us two colleagues from India and from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia who have shared their strategic insights into this very important issue, and also some updates as regards the progress of the negotiations that are ongoing. We have all been affected by what's happening in Hormuz, and this is something that the European Union has been reflecting on for some time now, so it was a very valuable conversation that we had in the first part of the meeting today. As regards the situation in Ukraine, as Kaya said, we had a very honest discussion about the principles that should guide our position moving forward on the basis of the paper that was kindly prepared by Kaya. The principles have been listed out. This is, we understand, a dynamic exercise, a dynamic document that is being updated according to, of course, how things are being developing. And we are carrying forward our united intention and will to increase the pressure on Russia, to maintain our full support for Ukraine, not only in terms of declaration of principle, but also in terms of tangible action. We have the examples of the 20th package, and we are already discussing about the next one, and of course the implementation, the release of the 90 billion loan to Ukraine. Andrei Sebiha has joined us last night at the dinner, so we had the opportunity to hear from him the latest on the situation on the ground. So overall, it was a very useful discussion we had, as I said, in true Gymnich fashion, and we look forward to carrying forward. We look forward to carrying with us the principles and the approach that we have decided upon in the formal formations that are provided for in the treaties.
Thank you, High Representative. Thank you, dear Minister. We start with your questions. Please indicate the principal to whom you address your questions, and we start with other colleagues from Cyprus Broadcasting Corporation.
Thank you very much. I'm Andreas Kalistradis from CYBC. Regarding of the participation of Indian and Saudi foreign ministers, Given the geopolitical environment and the focus of the Cyprus presidency, Mrs. Kallas, priorities of the Cyprus presidency are regional stability and maritime security. How did their contribution fit into shaping today's discussions? And was their presence useful?
Well, the answer to the last question was yes, it was very useful. And really, I mean, we appreciated them being here. We heard a lot about the discussion about the overall security architecture of the Middle East. I mean, we have multiple crises coming up, and just like in our security theater, they are also worried about these things, starting over and over again. So what more can we do together in order to have stability and peace in the Middle East? Because it's our immediate neighborhood. It has a huge effect also on us. Of course, also with India, we discussed the broader impact of the war in Iran, because it shows how much we are actually globally connected, which also shows that all of us need to diversify. We need to diversify our trade portfolios, need to diversify our energy portfolios, need to diversify also our trade routes and supply chains. So there is a lot of mutual interest of taking projects forward that will provide alternatives, so that if one choke point is not holding everybody hostage. So it was very useful. Thank you.
We move in the back. Colleagues from AFP, please.
Thanks a lot, Max Laney, AFP. Question for the High Rep. You didn't mention in your speech any progress or what was the latest on the discussion around having an envoy to talk to Moscow. Was there any unity or guidance given in the room by the ministers, or was it divisions that you saw over the issue? And then just following up on what you said the EU will never be a mediator between Russia and Ukraine, but Ukraine is asking the EU to step in and to get involved and play a bigger role now that the US has stepped back. So are you telling Ukraine you're not going to step in at the moment?
Yes, thank you. So as the talk was mostly on the substance, but of course it was also briefly touched upon, so how should we actually move forward with answering the question that you have on who. And the broad consensus was that we have the European institutions, we have the treaties in place, and the treaties provide us framework how we can actually decide on how to go forward. So sticking to the substance, I think this is much more important to be really ready on the issues that we want to see. And the other question was about. Yes, the mediator. The Ukraine's ask has been also about, if you look at their ask, then it is about actually also being, thumb on a scale on their side, because, all the concessions so far have been on Ukrainian side, but there should be also concessions on the Russian side, meaning that we should also help them in these negotiations, but we can't be mediators really, because we are defending the interests of Europe and the interest of Ukraine, because Ukraine is also in Europe. So that's why, whether it's a ceasefire, whether it's any other issue that I discussed before, then we can't be mediators, we can't be neutral, treating them equally, because we have been clearly on Ukraine's side.
Thank you. DPA in the back, and then we come back to the front. Please, the mic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ansgar Hase, German press agency, DPA. A question to the High Rep on the peace efforts for Ukraine. Can you tell us what kind of exchanges are currently taking place with the United States on this issue? Are there any exchanges at all? And also, perhaps a quick question to both of you. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said last week that apparently only the United States can handle these peace negotiations with Russia on Ukraine. Do you agree? Thank you.
Thank you. It is clear that all our efforts have to be also complementary to U.S. efforts, and ministers were also very clear about this. We are not, coming in instead of the United States, but we are actually addressing the issues that they haven't been addressing in these talks. Recently, it was last week when the majority of foreign ministers of European Union met with the Secretary of State of U.S. In NATO, and actually also were discussing how this process goes forward. Thank you.
Perfect. We go back to the front with Rosie, and then on the left.
Thank you very much. It's Rosie Burchard for DW. I wanted to follow up on the ideas you suggested in this paper in February. So, first of all, you said there were some new ideas in the room for what these conditions could be. Can you tell us any more about what those ideas were? And then, is there any consensus on those conditions you put forward? For example, restrictions on Russia's military or withdrawal of those troops from Georgia and Moldova. Are these merely your ideas, or can we think of them as EU conditions at this stage? And to both of you, if the EU won't be a mediator and the US won't be a mediator, who should mediate? I'm aware that your Saudi Arabian counterpart was in the room today. Have you got any ideas? Thank you.
Thank you. There were some additional ideas put forward. For example, the issue of Ukrainian civilian detainees, because there have been also, journalists detained in the occupied territories, that these should also be raised. Ukrainian children, return of them. It is also in the interest of Europe that these children are returned. And then on the question of the troops, Russian troops in Moldova, Georgia. So it is one idea, because when we talk about European core security interests, then it is not in the interest of not those countries, not us. If those countries are looking or trying to be, on the European path, then that there are Russian troops stationed there. It's a clear security risk, and it is in our interest that they are moved. So nobody was opposing that. So it is still there. Thank you.
Perfect. We have time. Sorry, Minister. Sorry.
Yeah. The paper includes certain very specific principles, and as I said initially, it's a paper that is dynamic. It's been updated, and it's going to be updated up to the point we get to a negotiating table. So we are not there yet, not because the situation is ready for us to be there, but because of what's happening on the ground and in general politically. About the mediation, the mediators, and having a competition between, I think this is not the case. As has been explained, the EU is not positioning itself as a mediator in this. It has taken a clear position because it affects its security interests, among other things. Plus, it's the principle stand as regards having an aggression, an act of aggression, something that goes against the very founding values of the European Union.
Yeah. Just one more thing on, who could be mediator. I think it is very important that we push Ukraine and Russia to talk to each other, because there are so many issues where only they can decide and nobody else. So we can, there can be countries that do this shuttle diplomacy, but in the end, it has to be them who sit down on these issues that only they can decide.
We have time for two quick questions. Yes, on the right, and then we come back.
Hi, Menelaos Hagikostas from the Associated Press. I just want to get back to the Iran war and You've mentioned that on freedom of navigation, Aspides could be expanded and that more resources are needed. I just wanted to ask you, what kind of resources? Can you outline the vision of how the EU will respond to ensure freedom of navigation once hostilities end for certain?
Yes. Thank you. So our naval mission, what it needs is more ships. So that it is a very simple answer. Of course, the discussion is also, if we look at the mandate of the Operation Aspides, then it actually covers the wide area. We only have to change the operational plan of this mandate. But if we want to also add demining ships, then we need to change the mandate as well, because we have countries that have demining ships. But it is a defensive operation, like you said, after the end of the hostilities, willing to recruit the ships, escort the ships, escort the ships out of the Strait of via the Strait of Hormuz, because it's also needed later on. But it mostly needs more ships. Good news is that we already have one more, and we are working on that. Thank you.
If I may, on this, of course, it's about strengthening Aspides, and this has been an ongoing effort. Cyprus has a position that goes a step after that, because after the end of the war, and after you have the mission controlling what's happening there, we need to take care of the markets as well. And the insurance premiums are showing that the markets will not be back to normal where they were before the war in any time soon. So you could have the freedom of navigation, but it could be too expensive to go through that specific part. So that's an angle of the whole issue that we need to be focusing on, or that's something that we put on the table as a general idea that perhaps cuts across portfolio and responsibilities.
Final question here in the front, please.
Thank you. I actually had a freedom of navigation question also. We saw a lot of enthusiasm by EU partners when Cyprus was attacked by that Hezbollah drone in February, and a lot of talk about strengthening Article 42, Paragraph 7 of the EU treaties. So my question is, do you now see similar enthusiasm to bring together an EU fleet in the Strait of Hormuz? Can you tell us how many EU member states are expressing willingness to participate? Because some countries like Greece have said they will, but there has to be a decent number involved. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. You know, I tasked my services already before this war started to operationalize the 42/7. Because we have different scenarios. We have, a scenario where you have a NATO member that is also a European member attacked. We have a scenario where, European member that is not a NATO member is attacked. And then we have everything that is also below the threshold of the Article 5 in NATO. So we have come forward with papers how we can operationalize the 42/7. We already did a tabletop exercise for our ambassadors to actually identify the gaps. And what is the end goal of this is to come up with sort of a manual how we can use this 42/7 if it is the case. On your second question, this is, my plea as well. We have Operation Aspides already in the region, and yes, it has too few ships. We have other initiatives like the UK-France initiative, but I think this can be complementary. The problem is that every member state has just one ship that they can contribute. So if they contribute this via the Operation Aspides, then we are united European front. We are credible credible security providers also when it comes to Gulf. We are also credible, in the eyes of the world, because together we are stronger. And also, we can contribute to the French-UK initiative that is also bringing aboard, countries from outside Europe. So I've had these meetings with defense ministers, foreign ministers, also the heads of the armies of European Union, the thoughts have been planted, so let's see how we can actually move forward in a very tangible way.
On this, just a reminder that this was discussed during the last UCO here in Cyprus, 42/7, and exactly on the lines described about providing the playbook and having the scenarios is providing in a way the formula for getting to that point on the basis of past experience from 2015, 2016, and more recently. But at the same time, we have to know and be aware of the limits of 42/7. As Fidesz has been pointed out, exists without any connection to 42/7. So the two, I wouldn't mix the two. It's a mission that has a different basis, and it faces the problems and the difficulties that Kaya has explained. But at the end of the day, the situation in Hormuz is what it is, and we need to make sure that the freedom of navigation is being supported by the European Union as a whole, on the basis of what already is in place and the initiatives taken by the High Rep.
Thank you, High Representative. Thank you, dear Minister. This brings this press conference to an end. Happy afternoon and lovely evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.